Okay, I'm going to be doing another discussion from this anthology, Philosophy of Religion by Poyman. What I've been doing, the last video, in this current, I'm currently doing videos on the problem of evil. The articles in this anthology are arranged topically, and I'm just kind of rereading all of this and doing videos on it. The last one I did was on Hume's part in his dialogues concerning natural religion, on the problem of evil. If you don't know what the problem of evil is, the problem of evil is that normal thing when atheists say, in all this suffering and all this evil in the world and all these natural disasters and all this stuff, how could a God exist among all this evil? I'm trying to set up my iPad here so I can sit here and read and not have to worry about holding it. Anyway, that's essentially what the problem of evil is. It's saying, how can there be an omnibenevolent, omniscient, and omnipotent God, given all of this suffering and evil in the world? And what I'm going to do here is Leibniz's theodicy, a defense of theism, and it's pretty much 8 objections that are given that center around the problem of evil. There are 8 objections, all of which are pretty much the problem of evil, which pose objections to the existence of a God, given evil in the world. And it's basically different issues within the problem of evil. And I'm gonna read it and discuss what Leibniz says, as well as what I think about that, and what I think about his objection, as well as what objection I think that there should be. So I'm going to go over relatively quickly the 8 objections that he has. 1, whoever does not choose the best is lacking in power or knowledge or in goodness. So he's pretty much saying this is a objection which is saying that if you don't choose the best, then you're lacking, then you either don't know of the best, or you are not good, or you are not powerful enough to do so. So it's saying that if you don't choose the best, then it's saying, God did not choose the best in creating the world, therefore God has been lacking in power or in knowledge or in goodness. And because God did not choose the best, because of all the evil in the world, he is either lacking, he's either not omniscient, not omnipotent, or not omnibenevolent, or a mixture of the 3. Answer: I deny the minor. That is the second premise of the syllogism. Whoever makes things in which there is evil, which could have been made without any evil, or in the making of which could have been omitted, does not choose the best. God has made a world in which there is evil, a world, I say, in which could have been made without any evil, or the making of which could have been omitted altogether. Therefore, God has not chosen the best. I have wished to justify this denial by showing that the best plan is not always that which seeks to avoid evil, since it may happen that the evil is accompanied by a greater good. For example, a general of an army will prefer a great victory with a slight wound to a condition without wound and without victory. We have proved this more fully in the larger work, but by making it clear, by instances taken from mathematics and elsewhere, that an imperfection in the part may be required for a greater perfection in the whole. In this I have followed the opinion of Saint Augustine, who has said 100 times that God has permitted evil in order to bring about good. that is a greater good, and that of Thomas Aquinas, that the permitting of evil tends to the good of the universe. So, what I think is going to be created here is, among these objections and Leibniz's responses, is there's this principle of a greater good, that evil being in the world must exist. It must be there for the purpose of there being a greater good or more perfection, or there must be imperfection to bring about perfection, or some kind of perfection in the world. So, pretty much, it's saying that because there is evil in there being evil in the world, it doesn't mean that God didn't choose the best. It just means that God recognizes that there must be evil to have better things, and He made a world according to this principle. Now, I think this is a very good response to this problem, because I personally think that evil exists in this world to make better people and thus a better society. But that only occurs to those who actually do get better. But that's, people who are religious and who do practice, religion of a sort will normally end up being better because of the bad things that have happened, or the bad things that they've done, or the bad decisions that they've made. Objection 2: if there is more evil than good in intelligent creatures, then there is more evil than good in the whole work of God. Now there is more evil than good in intelligent creatures. Therefore, there is more evil than good in the whole work of God. I deny the major and the minor of this conventional syllogism. As to the major, I do not admit at all, because this pretended deduction from the part to the whole, from intelligent creatures to all creatures, supposes tacitly and without proof that creatures destitute of reason cannot enter into comparison nor into account with those which possess it. As to the minor, that is no more to be admitted. That is not at all to be admitted that there is more evil than good in the intelligent creatures. There is no need even of granting that there is more evil than good in the human race, because it is possible, and in fact very probable, that the glory and the perfection of the blessed are incomparably greater than the misery and the imperfection of the damned, and that here the excellence of the total good in the smaller number exceeds the total evil in the greater number. So essentially, what is presented here is kind of a statement that the good is infinite and evil is finite. So what's being said here by this objection is that in intelligent creatures, thus humans and some creatures lower than that, mostly humans though, the intelligent creatures, that there's more evil than there is good in us. That is a debatable thing, I guess. First of all, I don't think that either one. We are neither inherently good, nor are we inherently bad either. We're not inherently anything. We become more evil or become more good because of influences in this world from other people, or from society as a whole. So, but if we are not all inherently either one, then these bad things come from the idea in our mind that it would be probably better to do certain actions, or more profitable or more pleasurable to do certain actions, thus leading to a more evil society. So an evil society from such actions is how a person can become more evil than good. So I don't think that there is more evil than good in intelligent creatures. There is evil and good. There's an inherent evil and inherent good in actions, which we make choices. We make different choices on what we choose to do. We'll choose to go down this path, and according to God, if you are a Christian, there's morals and values and beliefs as to which actions and which decisions are good and bad and evil and sinful and such. And those actions existing in certain societies, or I think in a way I think that evil exists in society, and that's only because of there's certain decisions made by various people who happen to coincide in the same world, and that's how we get a society which happens to be more evil than good. But us people are not inherently either one. Now let's talk about thinking about society. Right now, I think society is inherently evil, but that's because of our actions. That's because of the actions we choose to do. That, in my opinion, that would refer the answer to society being inherently evil, which I think it is. That is a work of God. Society existing is a work of God. People creating society and being good or evil, which in my opinion is evil, or more evil than good. That is still a work of God. So it could be objected to theism, that because of the inherent evil of society, then there is more evil than good in the whole work of God. This, I think, would be again answered by that what I think could be carved out of what Leibniz is doing, this principle of a greater good, which, because of immense evil in the world and in society, there is a greater good that will come about because of evil. There will be more perfection in the whole because of imperfection in parts. So that, I think, this principle of a greater good could answer that second objection as well. Objection 3. If it is always impossible not to sin, it is always unjust to punish. Now, it is always impossible not to sin, or in other words, every sin is necessary. Therefore, it is always unjust to punish. The minor of this is proved thus: all that is predetermined is necessary. Every event is predetermined because of God. Therefore, every event, and consequently sin also, is necessary. Syllogism 2, and this second minor is proved thus: that which is future, that which is foreseen, and that which is involved in the causes is predetermined. Every event is such. Therefore, every event is predetermined. I admit, in a certain sense, the conclusion of the second prosyllogism, which is the minor of the first, but I shall deny the major of the first prosyllogism, namely that everything predetermined is necessary. Understanding by the necessity of sinning, for example, or by the impossibility of not sinning, or excuse me, essential and absolute, and which destroys the morality of an action and justice of punishments. So we're talking about essential and absolute sin, because we're talking about necessary sin, predetermined actions or predetermined events. For if anyone understood another necessity or possibility, namely a necessity which should be only moral, or which was only hypothetical, it is clear that I should deny the major of the objection itself, saying that every sin is necessary. I might content myself with this answer and demand that with proof of the proposition denied, but I have again desired to explain my procedure in this work, in order to better elucidate the matter and throw more light onto the whole subject, by explaining the necessity of which ought to be rejected and the determination which must take place. That necessity which is contrary to morality, because of God, that's a common concept. That necessity which is contrary to morality and which ought to be rejected and which would render punishment unjust is an insurmountable necessity which would make all opposition useless, even if we should wish with all our heart to avoid the necessary action and should make all possible efforts to that end. Now it is manifest that this is not applicable to voluntary actions, because we would not perform them if we did not choose to. So, if it is always impossible not to sin, it is always unjust to punish. Now, it is always impossible not to sin, or in other words, every sin is necessary. Therefore, it is always unjust to punish. Leibniz, like the part I just read, is a good, interesting part of his response. And the necessity of such an event is called conditional or hypothetical, or the necessity of consequence, because it supposes the will and other requisites, whereas the necessity which destroys morality and renders punishment unjust, reward useless, exists in things which will be whatever we may do, or whatever we may wish to do, and in a word, is that which is essential. And that is what is called an absolute necessity. Thus it is to no purpose, as regards what is absolutely necessary, to make prohibitions or commands, and to propose penalties or prizes, to praise or to blame. It will be nonetheless. So that is essentially Leibniz's response to that, and it's saying that having an absolute essential idea of necessity with respect to sin, that's essentially saying that because of that would violate ideas of objective morality with respect to, because of the fact that there is God, and with God we do have objective morality. I kind of have a disagreement with him, saying if it is always impossible not to sin, it is always unjust to punish. Now, it is always impossible not to sin, or in other words, every sin is necessary, therefore it is always unjust to punish. For one thing, it is impossible as a human not to sin. Humans are always going to sin. I'm going to sin, you're going to sin. That's the way it's always going to happen. It's written in the Bible, and Leibniz isn't discounting what the Bible says, mind you. He's just saying that the idea of it being absolute necessity is wrong. Now, I don't think of sin as absolute necessity, but I think I think that it is necessary. It is impossible for a human not to sin. Now, I think that if we do sin, which we are going to, then we are going to learn. We are going to learn what is right, what is wrong. We're going to benefit from this evil that we have brought into our lives. I'm a good example of that. I've made lots of mistakes in my life. The reason I don't have a college degree right now is because of such mistakes, and since all this stuff I've done, all this bad things I've done in my life is the reason I'm not farther in my life. So I'm a good example of that. But if you are a Christian theist, you will understand this. God has a plan for your life, and there's going to be sin in your life, like a shit ton of it. But you are going to benefit from that. You're going to learn lessons, and you're going to learn a lot of things from that. Now, I don't think that having sin as like an essential thing does not destroy morality. It's just granting the fact that sin is always going to be there. So I think I've made the point very well that sin doesn't destroy morality. It brings about better morality, I think. It brings about more morals. It brings about better ideas of what you should be doing, and it just brings about a better sense of right and wrong, according to whatever God says, and you are more attuned to that, I guess. Especially if you're a theist, anyway. And that's pretty much saying I do think that sin it's very impossible not to sin. Therefore, I do think it is necessary. However, it does not destroy morality by any means. But then, because of this, the objection says, therefore, it is unjust to punish sin. This, I think, does not hold, because if we sin and bad things happen to us, that there's two kinds of punishment from people because of our sins, and punishment from the world just because of stuff that happens to us because of the decisions we make. So I don't think it's unjust to punish, because in Christianity there's this good understanding of sin, that everybody's going to sin, but you have to strive to minimize sin in your life. You have to strive to sin as least as possible. Strive to be as good as you possibly can, and making mistakes and sinning makes you better at that. It makes you better at not sinning. It makes you better at being moral, and it makes you better at everything. And punishment, whether from people or from the world, because of decisions that you make that bring about certain consequences, this punishment is a part of what makes you better. It's a part of what brings more morality and good in your life. So I disagree with this objection, as well as what Leibniz says in response. Objection 4: whoever can prevent the sin of another and does not do so, but rather contributes to it, although he is well informed of it, is accessory to it. God can prevent the sin of intelligent creatures, but he does not do so, but rather contributes to it by his concurrence and by the opportunities which he brings about, although he has a perfect knowledge of it. I denied the major of this syllogism, for it is possible that one could prevent sin, but ought not, because he could not do it without himself committing a sin, without performing an unreasonable action. We are not responsible for the results, even when we foresee them. So God can prevent sin of intelligent creatures, but he does not do so, but rather contributes to it by his concurrence and by the opportunities which he brings about, although he has perfect knowledge of it. Preventing the sin of another is sometimes our responsibility and sometimes not. It's our responsibility to say, this is right and this isn't. And there's also times where we need to step away and let it happen, because that sin will make that person learn and make that person better. God, however, has a plan for everybody, and within that plan is sin and lots of bad things. So God is accessory to sin in a sense. God is accessory to sin only because of the fact that sin brings about more good. Sin is really evil, and evil brings about more good. So in my opinion, this objection is also argued against because of this principle of a greater good. The fact that evil existing in life or in the world or in society brings about more good, or that imperfection in a person or in the society or the world brings about perfection of the whole. So I deny the major of this syllogism, for it is possible that one could prevent sin, but ought not, because he could not do it without himself committing a sin, or when God is in question, without performing an unreasonable action. So it's oftentimes that preventing a sin is in contradiction with God's plan, but that's so yeah. In a way, I agree with Leibniz's with Leibniz's thing, but the third one is probably the only one that doesn't exactly fall in line with being answered by this principle of the greater good. 1, 2, and 4 do, however, are answered by this principle of a greater good. Objection 5. Whoever produces all that is real in a thing is its cause. God produces all that is real in sin, hence God is the cause of sin. I might content myself with denying the major or the minor, since the term real admits of interpretations that would render these propositions false. But in order to explain things more clearly, I will make it a distinction. Real signifies either that which is positive only, or it includes also privative beings. In the first case, I deny the major and admit the minor. In this second case, I do the contrary. I might have limited myself to this, but I have chosen to proceed still farther and give the reason for this distinction. I have been very glad, therefore, to draw attention to the fact that every reality, purely positive or absolute, is a perfection, and that imperfection comes from limitation, and that is from privative, from the privative. For to limit is to refuse progress. For to limit is to refuse progress, or the greatest possible progress. So, whoever produces all that is real in a thing is its cause. God produces all that is real in sin. God is the cause of sin. First of all, God created Satan. Satan used to be an angel. I mean, if you're a theist, you believe this. God created Satan. Satan was an angel at the time, and then fell from heaven because of the fact that he wasn't, being like a normal angel. I guess I forget actually what happened. But God created Satan, and Satan, if you are a theist, you believe that Satan is what tempts you to do some certain things, and is a big part in making a certain sinful action seem more tempting or more tantalizing. So, I guess I agree with this. God is the cause of sin. But this is not a problem. This also is responded to by this problem of by this principle of the greater good, nor the damnation of adults who have acted according to the light which God has given them. And I believe that if anyone has followed the light which has been given him, he will undoubtedly receive greater light when he has need of it. Whoever punishes those who have done as was in their power to do is unjust. God punishes those who have done as well as it was in their power to do. So it's saying that us humans have only a certain amount of power. We only have a certain power of only a certain amount of power to resist sin, or a certain power to resist the things that God wants us to stay away from. And because we don't, so we don't have the power to not sin. We don't have the power to not sin. We don't have that power at all, and we try to, and yet we don't have the power to not sin. So we still sin, and God does punish us for that. The way I look at this is that God blesses you if you do certain things. God is going to, if you tithe, if you are on the brink or on the fence of committing a sin and you choose not to, God will bless you. If you help people, He will bless you. If you talk to somebody about God, He will bless you. So it's basically like, if you try your best to do good things, He will bless you. If you pray, if you repent, He will bless you. If you do certain things, He will bless you. If you read the Bible, He will bless you. It's all these things that if you do certain things, He will bless you. If you do certain things, you will have a better life. If you are a Christian, which many people are Christians, I have been a Christian for a while, and there are times when I don't read the Bible and I don't tithe, I don't help people, I don't do a lot of things that I should do, and my life is a life that's, and when I do not do those things, my life ends up being for a period. My life ends up being a little time where I'm disconnected from God, and some bad things happen. Some kind of bad things happen that will return me to God and make me do those things again. Now I've gotten better at that to where it doesn't take a huge catastrophe to bring me back to God, but I don't look at it as in this sixth objection. I don't look at it like this. I don't look at it that if you sin, God will punish you. It's not. I think that this is leaning on a certain kind of idea of God as this relentless and what's the word? Relentlessly tyrannical, mean, and punishing God that's just going to release His wrath on you. Now, there's two sides. Like, people, Christians often, will portray God as the way it's seen in the New Testament, as a loving, gracious God, and they don't look at it, and they don't look at the Old Testament, where he happens to be a God who, destroys Sodom and Gomorrah, flooded the whole earth, and did all these bad things. And the atheists are going to look at God only in the Old Testament, and are not going to look at God in the New Testament. They're going to look at the God who did flood the earth, destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, did all these horrible things. But God became, this more gracious. God did all those things in the Old Testament because of sin. He did all those things because of all the sin that was going on in all these places, and God stopped doing those things because of Jesus, because of Jesus dying on the cross for our sins. God stopped requiring sacrifices, and He stopped, all this wrath stuff, because of Jesus, and saying all you got to do is repent and ask Jesus in your life, and then you're good. I'm not going to do nothing else bad to you. That's all you have to do. And then pray and repent and help people also, which will give you more blessings than otherwise. So it's pretty much it's kind of like a glass half full, glass half empty kind of thing, to where if you do certain things, you'll be blessed. And if you don't do certain things, you're going to live a God-disconnected life, which could be bad and could be all right, depending on how things go or how God's plan for your life is. So I would look at this more as God blessing you, giving you do certain actions. Objection 7. Whoever gives only to some, and not all, the means which produces in them effectively a good will and salutary final faith has not sufficient goodness. God does this. Whoever gives only to some, and not to all, the means which produces in them effectively a good will and salutary final faith has not sufficient goodness. God does this. God gives only to some, and not to all. Answer: I deny the major of this. It is true that God could overcome the greatest resistance of the human heart, and does it too sometimes, either by internal grace or by external circumstances which have great effect on souls. But He does not always do this. Whence comes this distinction? It may be asked, then why does His goodness seem limited? It is because, as I've already said in answering the first objection, it would not have been in order always to act in an extraordinary manner, and to reverse the connection of things. The reasons of this connection, by means of which one is placed in more favorable circumstances than another, are hidden in the depths of the wisdom of God. They depend on the universal harmony. The best plan of the universe, which God could not fail to choose, made it so. So it's saying God gives only to some, and if you give only, whoever gives only to some and not to all, the means which produces in them effectively a good will and a salutary final faith has not sufficient goodness. So it's saying that really God's grace seems, to those who don't look for it, I guess, God's grace seems limited. In Jesus' days, He healed many people. He did all these great things. Some looked on that as witchcraft. Some looked on it as he must be a prophet, and some actually did see him as Messiah. But we don't see that. We don't see people getting healed of blindness or all these things. We don't see people getting their ears cut off and having the ears healed and brought back as well. We don't see that anymore. We'll see, like, a couple miracles here and there, which end up getting discounted by those who don't believe, and it said, "Oh, this, and this happened," which is not, which explains that, scientifically. So, why doesn't God give to everybody? Why doesn't God make it so everybody is really happy? Why is God's grace limited? Sorry, my foot is asleep. Why is God's grace limited? Why does He not? Why does He not give everything to everybody anybody wants? This is because there is a necessity of a certain kind of idea in this world, to where there's evil in this world, to where we are all going to have problems and bad things happen to us, and God has a way for us to maintain our lives. God has a way for us to God has a way for us to make our lives better, and God has a way for us to make it so that all these problems in our life don't matter anymore, and that all that matters is Him. All that matters is that we come to Him and love Him like that all the time, and it's through that our life will become better. And we wouldn't, and this whole thing rests on this idea that we have to take a leap of faith. We have to not rely on empirical evidence. We have to take a leap of faith and just trust in Him that He is there, and that He loves us. Because if He did, just show His goodness in its fullest form, for one, people wouldn't be able to handle it, and for the main thing, though, the purpose of this world would no longer exist. The purpose of this world is to show us all this evil, and to be in the midst of it, and to come out of it towards Him. The whole thing is so for us to come out of it, out of this evil, and to come towards Him, to come towards Him, and to choose Him over all this evil. And if He were to show His goodness in its full form, the purpose of Him creating this world would be non-existent. There'd be literally no reason for us to exist, and we could all just be in heaven by now. So that is really the whole thing. The response to this objection is the meaning of the world, the meaning of our lives, and then the meaning of this world. The reason why God created the world and us, and put evil amongst it, is so that we can come out of it, stop doing these things, and to come out of it and choose good things, and choose to help people, and choose Him over those superficial, civil things, I guess. So that's the theist response to this. Objection 8. I believe this is the last one. Whoever cannot fail to choose the best is not free. Whoever cannot fail to choose the best is not free. God cannot fail to choose the best. Hence, God is not free. I deny the major of this argument. It is rather true liberty and the most perfect to be able to use one's free will for the best, and to always exercise his power without ever being turned aside either by external force or by internal passions, the first of which causes slavery of the body, the second slavery of the soul. There is nothing less servile, nothing more in accordance with the highest degree of freedom, than to be always led toward the good, and always by one's own inclination, without any constraint and without any displeasure, and to object, therefore, that God had need of external things is only a sophism. Could God choose something else besides the best, besides the most good? Could God choose otherwise than to have could God choose to make a totally evil world that has no good behind it? Yes. However, there would be a problem of proving that. But I mean, if God exists, there is no way he could be not free. The idea of God, I guess, could not exist, or could not. The idea of an omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God could not exist as such without being free. I mean, there's no possible way. The only way that could exist would be there being a super God that would be ahead of him, I guess. So that was a weird last one, I think. Pretty much most of these, except for that, the number 3, number 8, I guess, are ones that hover around this idea of the principle of the principle of the greatest good. The principle of the greatest good is that which the fact that because of the fact of sin and evil in this world, then there is a greater good behind that, a more perfect good behind all this evil, and that because of this evil, there is a greater good not only in the world and society, but in each of our lives, I guess. The only problem with this principle is the principle is really saying that because of this evil, because of all these problems and all this, that this place gets better and has more good in it because of that, and apparently it gets better from that. I guess I don't really even see any problems with that. I guess I was thinking of one, but I don't really see any problems with it. If you do see a problem with it, then comment below, I guess. I apologize for this being so long, by the way. I guess what Leibniz does, which is very important, I think, is this principle of the greater good, a more perfect good behind all this evil, that the world, the society gets better, gets more goodness in it because of this evil. And I don't really see any problems with that. I mean, that seems like we see examples of that in our daily life, of how, because of, you know, let's say we have a heroin addict, and because of, you know, all the bad decisions he's made in his life, he, you know, cleans up and becomes a better person because of all of this, and thus is able to counsel, and, you know, gets a certain LMHP degree, based on chemical dependency, and is able to counsel people through that. But mainly he's feels, you know, his heart is felt on this kind of thing because of his life, and all the things in his life, and he makes better things in this world, because of that. So I don't see any issues with this idea of the greater good. So that, I think, is a very good argument. So yeah, if you see any problems with that, please comment. So yeah, thank you. Sorry it's so long, by the way.